Alright, let's see if the stream started. Once it is, I will make it all nice and begin with everything else, with all the fun. Welcome back, everyone. This is Lauren coming at you from the break zone with another set review. This one being for water, light, dark, and starter cards for Opus 7. So we're going to start off with Agrius, 6-drop, 7k. So that's hypothetically on the curve, but if you're able to get her effect off, not the first one, well, if you play something like Layla and Vikings, it shouldn't be too difficult. But that second effect, keep in mind that if you're not successful with it, as in you already have 5 backups and you flip a backup off the top of your reveal a backup off the top of your deck, or if you have a unique forward or monster or whatever that doesn't allow you to play it, you will shuffle those cards that you revealed. You will stop your revealing. You will shuffle the cards together and put them at the bottom of your deck. That has been an official ruling from Square Enix and Hobby Japan. So it's something to keep in mind. If you play this card, you will have to build your deck around it so that when you do get this card, it will be very effective. Okay. Some of the cards that work well with it, as I mentioned, Layla and Vikings, because, well, Layla is 4-drop, but Vikings are standard units, or Viking with no S. 3-drop, so you'll be able to draw a card out of it, get another forward, so that if you want to count in terms of CP value you're getting out of it, that's 5 CP for the card itself, Viking, as well as 3 more. Then 2 more CP from the card drawn. So that's 7 CP already of value, plus 7,000 power forward. That, if played correctly, if put together correct, if a deck actually pulls this off, it would be amazing. Other cards to keep in mind when playing this, playing Agrius, are like Revelia, which is very thematic in terms of Final Fantasy tactics. And if you have 7 more cards, which is something that characters, which is something that you might want to do if you're playing in something like, let's say, Mono Water, then it'd be pretty cool. Another thing is, if you want to switch out this card, you do have the ability to do so with Duke, Goltana, but, well, at least if you play Duke Goltana and search Agrius, you no longer have to worry about flipping a Duke Goltana afterwards. But if you play Agrius and get to Duke Goltana, make sure you have other knights you can search for, because otherwise that's going to be a sad day. Either way, I think the card is very interesting. Do I expect to see a lot of it in play? A lot of it being played because it's a legendary. It's tough. It requires a deck to be built specifically with Agrius in mind. Otherwise, you're going to be turning over a whole bunch of cards that you don't want to see in play, and perhaps you want to make sure that you have 1 backup slot open. So don't go up to 5 backups if you plan on playing Agrius later on, because if she reveals, turns over a card, 1 card at a time, and reveals backup, and you already have 5, it will actually fail to trigger, and you paid for a 6 CP, 7,000 power forward, which won't feel so good. Oh, and I love the art. Okay, next, Gawain, Final Fantasy Legends, also a knight, so that's kind of cool. And doesn't receive damage from 4's abilities. Could be quite relevant again as well, as usual. You know, the all-powerful Dialuma. That's an effect, but it's 4's only, so things like Fusoya will still take care of it. So keep that in mind. Do I really think this card's broken or anything like that? I think it's nice. It probably had more effect over, well, even in Sealed I didn't see it very much. But it's an interesting card to keep in mind. But right now I don't really see a spot in. If I were to make a Mono Water or a Knight's deck today, I don't know if I'd even put this card in there. Alright, Kimari. Goodness, 6 CP, 9,000 power. That's alright. I mean, you could normally get 9,000 power out of 5 CP forwards, but the abilities are really nice. The fact that if he protects, his cost is cheaper for each guardian you have, so you want to put him in a guardian deck. And guardians can be chosen by opposing abilities other than guardians other than Kimahri will not be able to be chosen by opposing abilities, and category 10 characters other than Kimahri cannot be chosen by opponent summons. So keep in mind that let's see, we're gonna look up guardians first. So there's a good amount of guardians. Unless you're playing title series, you won't be able to play the other versions of Kimahri. But all of these, well, not this one. Okay, don't count that. That's all of these other cards would be notable guardians. Some people have mentioned that having a backup that's protected, it can be quite nice. But in terms of cool guardians I like to see would be like Titus. This version specifically, if you were to play Kimahri with Leyland Vikings, this version of Titus would be quite interesting because Leyland Vikings will also count towards this little bonus, and giving this card protection will make it a little bit safer for you to blitz ace, even though there are times where if they put enough blockers out, Titus is going to have a tough time, even if he has bravery. It's quite large. Let's see, other guardians that I think are quite nice. Well, if you're playing comeback mode, I guess Jack's not too bad. And in terms of getting boosts or giving little bonuses, actually the Caius doesn't count. So these three right here don't count for the regular guardian bonus. But there you go. Oron, also a guardian, being able to give category 10 forwards brave is quite nice. And in terms of category 10 characters other than Kimahri not being able to be chosen by summons, let's take a look. Filter, category 10, I can't count. There we go. So yeah, you have even more characters to choose from. Something to keep in mind would be the Gullwings. And actually, hold on, let's do characters, not summons, because he will protect summons, obviously. So yeah, you have a good amount that you can pick from. Also, Brother is able to search out category 10 character forwards. And let's see, which ones to keep in mind. Well, the Gullwings already have a good amount of protection. So summons, let me think. Was it Riku that protected from summons? So if you play like Kimahri and Riku, you'd have Riku would have protection from summons and abilities as long as Kimahri is in play. And I guess it would be a little, oh whoops, there's even more. Even Sin. Woohoo! But come on. Pain also, it would be a bit of a redundant effect for let's see, characters, summons. Yeah, Pain and Kimahri would be redundant for Riku, but Riku would protect Pain. So there's a lot of interactions to be had. And this card is going to be amazing in title, along with other cool title card. Where's the other Titus? So yeah, in title series, these two cards are going to get so much reduction from other Guardians, as well as in this case for Titus, category 10. Let's see. Yep, for each category 10 forward that you control is going to be really nice. At least in terms of the cost reduction for Kimahri being Guardians. Let me look at that again. Jeez, I really should. Well, let's look specifically at backups. Guardian. And I can't spell that either. Guardian. Okay. So, Waka is definitely an interesting one to keep in mind. Did I? Yeah. Oh, I'm surprised. I guess the other Waka is not what I think it is. But yeah, this Waka and Kimahri For example, makes it a 5-drop 9k that would protect Waka. Would be pretty interesting, as well as let me clear this up to see why the other Waka wasn't shown. Surprised that that's not a Guardian. Oh yeah, he's a Blitzballer, that's why. So this, if you were to play that package, it would work out as well. He would still get the plus 1000 power boost, but he would not get a cost reduction. Okay. Next up, Chemist. Category 5, but otherwise, Astrologian. Very reminiscent of Astrologian from Title 14. Okay. Haven't seen this card very much lately, so I don't expect to see Chemist much either, except in Title Series. Sahagin. This card was great in sealed because all day, all I saw was freaking snow. Okay, I might not have been the only one to feel that way, but in pre-release, snow was a bit of a big deal. But being able to reactivate forwards to control after they got dulled by snow and give them plus 1000 power was pretty cool, to say the least. Still not a complete counter, but at least you might have been able to take out one of the forwards that your opponent controlled at the time. Discarding it to the discard effect is not quite as relevant. I can't even think of many 1-cost forwards. Goodness. Let's take a look. Forward, cost 1. Well, I know there's Fimuri Gogo, right? Well, I guess there's, wow, a good amount. But I wouldn't want to return K-Sith because then he gets his effective dull again. Let's see. Out of all of these, which one am I actually likely to see? There's a chance I see Ramza, but not very high. There's Leo. Returning Leo to your opponent's hand. I don't know if it'd be backbreaking, but some people do rely on Leo to get to have their backups produce CP of any element. Let's see what else. Leon came up here and there, but with how prevalent Vikings are and the fact that Layla is a category 2, Leon's kind of fallen out of favor. Fimuri Gogo, haven't seen him in a while, but it's still a possibility. I don't know. 1-drop 7k is nice. The special, I've never been able to successfully use a special. And the little bit of a drawback is actually quite relevant. If you're ever kind of stabilized against your opponent or somehow got rid of all their forwards, then Fade Mimic Gogo goes away, and that's just really sad. Okay, and let's see, 1-drops. Yeah, I don't see many of these. Even Black Chocobo, haven't seen Black Chocobo in a while. Or 1-drop Palom, haven't seen it since Boston Crystal Cup, or the Wonder Twins decks. And Snow, yeah, Snow's still 1 CP, and haven't seen this card used as much lately, but maybe with Turbo Discard being gone on starting December 1st, it might make a comeback. But either way, if you use this card, it's probably for the first effect, maybe not so much the second one. That would be just a nice little bonus. As I showed you this, people don't use as many 1 CP forwards lately, but you know, it's there. Love the art, but I don't expect to see this card that much. Alright, Chio's Gano. Let's see, 2-drop 7k, becomes a forward if a forward opponent controls returns to his owner's hand. Well, water is definitely set to return things to forwards to opponent's hand if they want to, like Leviathan and the many other Leviathans out and about. Okay, since Opus 1, we've had Leviathans almost every Opus, and this one was the most popular one, which still looks beautiful right now. Final Fantasy Tactics, Gex Burst. This one being quite interesting because it can actually cancel the effect of an action ability such as Devout, so that was always pretty cool. And So it's not too difficult to actually get it to trigger if you want to. There's obviously other effects such as Heroic Yuna from Opus 1. Haven't seen her as much lately. And Strago, for example. Haven't seen him as much lately either. And there's also, if you go, what was it? Was it Dragoon? I think it was a Dragoon. There you go. No, wait, that wasn't it. I don't remember the other card that was that would return a card to an opponent's hand, but there's some other effects definitely, and it is interesting to have that little damage reduction effect here whenever he receives Geo's Gano receives damage, reduce the damage by 1000. I don't feel that's super relevant, but I mean it's there. Do I feel like this card's going to show up very often? Probably not, but who knows. Now that Thaumaturge and Jasper are going to be banned starting December 1st, we might see monsters come back. Okay, next up, White Mage. Being able to activate forwards is nice, especially if you're playing against some form of dull and freeze effects, especially ice. But I don't expect to see it all that much. I guess it was supposed to help in sealed, but I didn't see it doing its job. Alright, Styx. So another one of the 4 generals, the ones that I like to focus a lot on being mono element to get that little boost here. You could trigger for the Geo's Gano here by using only water CP in order to play it. 5-drop AK is undercurve, definitely. The fact that it has a special though is really nice, but you can only use this effect, this ability, if you receive 5 points of damage or more. So that's a little restrictive. It's cool. I like the art. Do I expect to see this card being played? Not really. Alright, Sarah from Final Fantasy Legends. This card is pretty awesome. It's a Warrior of Light also. But being able to search out one job Warrior of Light forward of cost 4 or less, other than light or dark, and play it onto the field. So people have noted that it says dark, Warrior of Light, dark. So that's maybe an indicator that in the future there will be a dark Warrior of Light, also known as Warrior of Darkness. So that could be interesting, but also 4 or less. Let's see. Well, it's that keyword Warrior of Light. Okay, maybe I should do, it's a forward only, so let's do forwards. Alright, so you've got a good amount of Warriors of Light. Keep in mind that the light one here, as well as Wall here, and this Warrior of Light will not be valid targets for this Sarah. And if you're playing a Warrior of Light deck, most likely you're sending part of your deck around this one. So that's not a target. Something to keep in mind when you play those games. But this card is quite interesting as well, Warriors of Light, they have a lot of synergies with each other, as the package of like Ingus, Arc, Lunith, and what's Refia? Huh. I think I'm like, there you go, Refia. Okay, they all give job Warrior of Light forwards and their respective element plus 1000 power, so they give each other boost, and that gets to be a pretty big deal. Do I expect to see this card played? The answer is yes. I do expect to see this card played in Warrior of Light decks, even though it can't get this wall. It can definitely get this one out. So this card's still amazing from Opus 5, and it's gonna be fun to see Warrior of Light decks. I mean, since I'm sure other people have put it together for a while, but watching Gunslinger decks of the Hobby Japan team playing Warriors of Light was really interesting, really fun. I expect to see more in the future, as well as one of our locals, Anson, likes to play Warriors of Light, and being able to kind of see it in action is always really nice. The board gets pretty big though, and but those guys get pretty difficult to handle when they're like 8 to 12, 8 to 10 to higher power levels. It's just ridiculous. Over 9,000 most of the time. All right, next up we've got Dusk, Warrior of Light again. So it's somewhere here. There you go. 3-drop 6k, so not so great. But if you put it in a Warrior of Light deck, you get to draw a card. So if you play Dusk off of Sarah, which is not here right now, but you will be able to get, yeah, you'll be able to draw a card out of it. Or if you play, if you play Sarah and you get Dusk, so you get 1 card, so that's 2 CP. You get Dusk himself, that's another 2 CP. For 3 CP force, that's another 3 CP. So technically, you play Sarah to get Dusk from your break zone onto the field, and you get a whole lot of stuff out of it. And the fact that you can make your summons cheaper is kind of nice. All right, Titus. So the second card that I've ever seen in this game that has back attack. Let's see, Scar. What's that? Scar. I can't spell that name for crap. Scar. There you go. The first one ever being from Opus VII, Scarmiglione. So you're able to play Titus onto the field anytime you have priority, and you can play Summoner ability. Titus is able to enter the field. Some people have mentioned that it's a very telegraphed move, because if you have 3 water backups, because you can only pay with CP produced by water backups to play Titus from your hand onto the field. So there's definitely other ways to play him, but if you play him from your hand, it has to be water backups. So if you're trying to play a back attack trick through your opponent's turn, usually it's very telegraphed, because you're, for some odd reason, have a card in the hand maybe, and don't use your CP to play 3 of your water backups to play any kind of card during your turn. They might expect you to play Titus. One of the fun ways I've seen it played instead is that during your attack phase, to give a power boost, a plus 2,000 power boost to your other forward, is a little more surprising. But if they see you play the first time, or they see one in your break zone from discarding it early on for CP, it would be a little more obvious for them and easier for them to play around. To activate all your water force could be relevant, and keep in mind that you could also play him off of Phoenix, okay, because he's a 3 CP forward, and if you play him from your break zone instead of from your hand, this little cost CP restriction does not apply. But he would only be able to give the power boost to a water forward, though, including himself, for example. So if you played Phoenix to deal 8,000 damage to a forward, and then after that use Titus as a blocker, so he could turn into and target himself, so he becomes a 9,000 power forward. You could block you could have Titus trade with a 9,000 power forward and have Phoenix take out an 8,000 power forward. Okay. Next up, Titus. So a lot of little tricks you could try to play with it, but one of the fun ones I would think about would be, well, I guess Lulu, maybe. I haven't thought about it too much quite yet, but he is a Guardian, he is Kategori 10, so he's going to get that little Kimari boost if you have Kimari in your deck. And I think some people are trying to build around this card a little bit, being able to return a character you control to your hands. So let's say for some odd reason you have Shantoto in your deck as well. Earlier on you might have played Shantoto, and normally that gives your opponent a clear signal that, hey, he can't play Shantoto again, he only has it on the field. I can go ahead and put out a bunch of forwards and not be scared of the Earth board wipe. And after that you play Titus, get your Shantoto back, and do it again. Then that could be backbreaking, but that's a little bit too cute of a play for me. I'm sure other people will think about other ways to benefit from returning a character you control to your hand. Off the top of my head, I haven't found too many that would feel like it pushes my game state forward without putting me at a disadvantage in the long run. So maybe if you did it as a way to replay an effect that you needed right now to win you the game, it would be too bad. But you are paying for to do it, and I think there's other ways that you might be able to do so. I mean, it's not the first time we've seen this kind of effect, but in the same set, yeah, there is Yak Roche to return a backup if you want to do that for Shantotto. But even for any character, you also have Miyun, who would also be able to return a character you control. So I haven't seen Miyun being used too often, so I don't really expect Titus to be too popular either. Even though he's a 4-drop 9k, that little hypothetical, that little drawback, I don't see it becoming to an advantage too often without having to build a whole deck around it. Alright, next up we've got Ninja. Let's see, if you play with fire, prevent from blocking, that's pretty cool, and return it to your hand. So that's very thematic, category 5 by the way. Very thematic for Ninja to be able to do ninja things, okay? Being able to prevent opposing forwards from blocking, that's kind of nice. And then not only that, like, I guess you could say like Naruto or whatever, like just throws like a smoke bomb and then like disappears and comes right back whenever it wants to. That's really cool. It's a fun looking card, but do I expect for it to see much play? Maybe not so much, unless you're able to give it haste turn after turn. Well, even if you give it haste, I don't know if well, yeah, actually, if you were able to give it haste, it'd be interesting because if you had a, let's see, just for fun, okay? I'm not saying this is competitive by any means, but just for fun, if you're playing water, fire, and you play your ninja, you force your opponent not to block, and you would get the boost from Godot. Godot attacks, giving haste to Ninja, Ninja can attack, and on your next turn, you return it to your hand, you play it again, and you do the whole cycle again and again and again. It'd be funny. I would actually give people major props for putting a deck together and pulling it off. But do I see it happening often? Maybe not. Alright, Halicarnassus. This card, awesome. I did pull a foil of it, so I'm going to show it off because, just because I can. Alright, Halicarnassus. Hopefully you can see it in all its glory. Alright, what do I think about this card? 3-drop 7k that blanks all the abilities of opposing forwards. I think that's cool. Be able to discard 2 cards to choose a forward and break in with no restrictions. I think that's cool too. So, will there be some decks out there? Perhaps. And there's definitely times when your opponent has forwards with abilities that are really problematic. Some of them being like, for example, if your opponent has Viking, and normally it's like, hey, I don't mind blocking with Viking all day, and then returning it with Layla and whatever. But if you blank it out, he won't have any of those draw effect when he leaves the field. Or if you're playing against, let's say, Nanaluma, I keep bringing this card up because it's such a big deal. Be able to blank out the effect right here. This does not target forward, so he's not even going to get the first trigger from being targeted. I mean, if your opponent targets Nanaluma on their own with, let's say, their Cactuar, in response to Halicarnassus' effect being on the stack, they could still do that. But if you're able to blank out Nanaluma and they were hoping that Nanaluma would be their saving grace, preventing you from attacking, then they'll be slowly mistaken when you're able to just blank out this effect. Or even if somebody thinks that they locked you out with Emperor, like, hey, you know what, all your abilities and everything, like, if somebody feels like you're playing mono water and you have a Scholar and they put out an Emperor preventing you from returning Cognasso, so they feel pretty safe for a little while, then if you play Halicarnassus and are able to double Cognasso, for example, it would be one way to kind of get around the Emperor. But unfortunately for Halicarnassus, usually the Emperor likes to ride around with his buddy Ishtola, and Ishtola would be able to be put into the break zone in order to cancel the auto ability of the entire field effect. Do I feel Halicarnassus is going to see play? I think so. I think I'm going to see this card every once in a while. That effect is quite potent. The second effect also is very potent as well. There are times when some of your summons might not be what you need right now, and turning them into a break effect instead might be exactly what you need. A break effect is not something Water has a lot of, so being able to do so would be quite interesting. Okay, Fairies, people talk about this card quite a bit too. Warrior of Light, Lena sees a lot of play in Mono Water, or like maybe, I don't know about Wind Water, but Mono Water definitely, maybe a little bit of Wind Water as well. The set did not have a Lena, which was quite surprising, but the one that we have at the time, the only Lena that we have right now, is still quite popular. So it wouldn't be too hard to get a 4-drop AK out of this. On top of, this is why I keep talking about Category 5 characters. Being able to reveal the top 5 cards of your deck and get a Category 5 character among them is quite nice as well. And there's a chance, for example, you play Ferris and you reveal the top 5, you get Lena, and the following turn you play Lena, turning Ferris into a 4-drop AK that gets you a card from the top of your deck, to the top 5 cards of your deck into your hand. In Title Series, I definitely see this card coming in if you're playing Category 5. But even in Constructed, there's a chance that you see it after like people play Lena. I mean, it feels like it's maybe a bit of a win more, because if you're already playing Recovery with Lena getting into Night, follow that up with a Ferris and getting extra cards out of it, it might be too combo-y, but there's a chance that it's enough combo to just make a deck quite broken. Okay, Braska, another summoner from Category 10, and that reduces the cost of summoners. So let's take a look at Summoner. Oh goodness, I can't put Summoner as a job, so it's gonna come out. Okay, there's gonna be a bunch of Summoners out that don't really matter as much. Okay, Summoners, we've got Seymour over here is a Summoner. Yuna is a Summoner. Also, the other Yuna is a Summoner. Oh, interesting. Another Summoner is the other Yuna, the Len. Oh, should I really click on those cards for you guys? Sure. Whew. I think my computer's taking a toll though. Alright, that's a Summoner. That's another one. This popular Yuna is also a Summoner. Not often. I don't think I'm going to see it often where Braska comes in before this Yuna though. Let's see. This Yuna is also a Summoner. Haven't seen her very much since, what was it, the Waterlight decks. Len is also a Summoner. And be able to activate her. Like, I have never seen this card being played. Wow, Rydia, Summoner. Almost forgot about her. Haven't seen her around very much. And I haven't seen her around that much either. Let's see, who else? This Rydia. Wow, I like the card. Haven't seen her much either. That is... Nope. But Eiko is another Summoner as well. Goodness. There's a lot of value to be had if you... But keep in mind that it's a 3 cost, so you'll probably play it second turn. If anything, usually you don't want to pay 4 CP for a 3 CP backup. And the amount of value that you get over time for it might be a little more, let's say... Oh, whoops. Did I miss a land here? Oh. I'm surprised the other land's not a Summoner. Either way, Eiko, also a Summoner. And there's a lot of similar cards. Unalaska, Summoner as well. So being able to get a 2 CP 7K would be pretty nice. And, well, the ones from the set as well. Seymour. Yeah, there's definitely a chance, right? If you play Seymour, Braska, and Yuna in the same deck, you can go ahead and start playing Yuna for pretty darn cheap, right? Like, if you keep getting Yuna back from your break zone into play with Braska in play, then you only play 1 CP to get her back on the field, so 1 CP 6k reveal on the top of the card of your deck, and like it. So technically, if Yuna's in your break zone, you have Braska in play. You pay 1 to use her ability to get her back in your hand, and another 1 because of the cost reduction from Braska to put her back into play, turning her into a 2 CP return from the break zone into the field to some extent, as long as you have 3 summons in your break zone to be able to pull it off. That could be interesting. I'd like to see it happen. It might be too combo-y, and I don't know how I feel about a deck that is mostly based around summons. I could definitely be proven wrong. If anything, by this deck, by this combination of cards, Seymour, Yuna, and Braska, there's definitely a high chance that somebody puts a deck together for that. How competitive is it going to be? I don't know. And how much do you really need Braska in that deck? I'm not quite sure either. Do I expect to see this card in play in competitive decks? Maybe. I can't say for sure. This is going to be interesting though. Alright, next up we've got mine 4-drop 8k standard unit category 5 multi-card. If you have Earth, you have a little mini Gipal, if for anybody familiar with it. So people have mentioned that, yeah, Gipal clearly gives you more power for that turn. If you're playing Earth CP to pay a 4 cost, you could have played Gipal instead. Gipal has an EX burst on top of that. So why don't you play Gipal instead of mine? Well, it's a multi-card first of all. Second of all, it's a standard unit, which could matter as well. So do I expect this card to see play? Not really, but maybe. Who knows? Alright, Yagrosh. Cool effect. Keep in mind that even if you play Mono Earth and you have Shantoto, Shantoto can dull for any element because it counts for anything. So you can, even if you had 1 Yagrosh in your deck and 2 Shantotos, for example, and you play your Shantoto and your opponent goes wide again, then you play your Yagrosh using your Shantoto to return Shantoto to your hand, and after that you play it again. That seems greedy, but really funny. If you Shantoto your opponent twice to take out multiple 4s, that can be pretty sad for your opponent. But it would be, I would laugh a little bit because you actually pulled off a series of events that I don't think is going to happen too often. Alright, next up we've got Oracle. Top 2 cards in the deck. So I think this card's pretty fun. Obviously, it does not have a break effect, so that's a bit of a problem, but in sealed, this card was amazing. In constructed, I don't know, I mean, maybe already and can I spell this correctly? Nope, I never can. And that's because, there you go, Artemisian. I even say it correctly and I can't even spell it. But I would most likely rather play this card instead of this card. But it is interesting though that you look at the top 2, so you don't have to reveal them and you put them at the bottom. You may put them at the top or bottom. So if you like them, keep them at the top. If you don't like them, put them at the bottom. But in constructed, I would probably opt to play 1 or 2 Artemisians instead of 1 or 2 Oracles. Okay. Next up, Leviathans. So there's a lot of other Leviathans up and about. But if you hit off EX Burst, you get to draw an extra card. That's cool. It does have a restriction of cost 4 or less, so that's a little bit tougher. And obviously, you can reduce its cost by having the also popular Yuna as one of your backups in play. Waka, okay, I think we talked about it already. I'll go over it again. Forward, category 10. And go. So you have your pick of the litter for category 10 4s, and you can pick. Oh, that's why there's songstress here. Whoops, forgot about that. That's why I didn't see it earlier. Anyways, Waka with Gold Wings, I think would be interesting. Be able to make him just a little bit bigger. Also, that normally this Waka would not, the original Waka would not give a power boost to the Gold Wings because they're in the wrong element. But if you were to play in title series, having this Waka is definitely a must. And for your water forwards in title series, being able to have both Wakas, his Chibi and his full-on form, would definitely be pretty nice, to say the least. But yeah, I mean, that's could also give Sin a buff because sometimes, you know, you wipe the board and 9,000 power is not enough, so why not make it 10k instead, right? Alright, next up we got, yay, light cards, whew, almost at the end of the tunnel. So, we've talked about summoners before. This card's pretty nice, being able to reveal the top of your card, obviously. Works really well with, if you looked at our lightning review, Seymour. And I have to clear the filters, because that's what I do. Seymour and Yuna work really, really well together, obviously. So, something to keep in mind, and being able to return her back to your hand if you play enough summons in your deck is cool. Keep in mind her effect is only once per turn, but that means your turn and your opponent's turn. You can use it once or your turn, then your opponent's turn, and do it again and again. But you reveal it so your opponent will know one of the cards that she'll be drawing into, unless you use the effect to actually play a summon off of that. Okay. Next up, Yuri, the pre-release promo. Do I have it here right now? It's beautiful. It's a great card. I love it. It's also, while it's one of the few cards that is a forward that counts as multiple elements at once. This one counts as everything except for dark. Unfortunately for this card, that means that this little guy will not as soon as Camelot calls an element, Camelot will be protected from all the other effects. So some people are talking about building decks that focus on reactivating backups. So, and in Mono Wind, there's a lot of reactivating backup effects in Mono Wind, such as Zoo for one that came out in this set. Layak, whenever your opponent attacks, be able to reactivate, including Yuri, and let's see, Cecil now, that we'll talk about in a little bit actually, being able to choose up to 2 characters and activate them, as well as Quartz, if you're playing in Mono Wind. You can also reactivate all wind characters, including Yuri, that counts as a wind character, since Yuri has all elements except for dark. 4-drop, 8k, so that's definitely on curve. Huge amounts of synergy with Shalinka, obviously. That's part of the set. Shalinka is one of the cards that synergizes really well with. I mean, it was completely designed to work with it. Obviously, same with Alhanalem, actually calling out both cards on itself. Also being able to be searched out with a 3CP EX burst card in Wind, kind of, you know, hint, please use Wind, with both cards being named here. And Wind Fire, I guess, is what it's supposed to look like. Being able to bring it right back with the Father from your break zone. So only if obviously you can't normally discard Yuri into your break zone unless your opponent forces you to do it, or you have like Jalika. I'm not even gonna pull up that card right now. But if Yuri were to go to the break zone because your opponent removed it, since that's a whole lot of effects. And I think it was Chris Adams or Adam Lane over at RVA that discussed the fact that the worst effect you could have is draw a card. I suppose like that's how strong this card is, that it has all these effects, and the one that you're least likely to use because it's not as potent as the other one is probably the draw a card effect. I mean, forcing an forward to lose all of its abilities at the end of turn is huge. Dual freezing is huge. Being able to deal 4,000 damage to a forward is also huge. If you have 5 elements of 5 of the same element backup, let's say Mono Wind, and including also Yuri, you'll be so. If you duel a total of 3 active backups, let's say Wind, then you'll get one of the effects, and then 2 active backups and Yuri. So if you have 5 Wind backups and Yuri all active, you'll be able to use 2 of these effects. Let's say deal 2 instances of 4,000 damage to 8,000 damage, 8,000 power forward, being able to break it, or be able to duel and freeze 2 forwards, or to make a forward lose all its abilities down the turn, or even just draw 2 cards. I mean, that's the least likely one, which is really funny. But duel and freeze I think is good. Damage is good. Losing all the I can't say enough about this card. I was super hyped to see it as a pre-release promo. Hopefully you guys got to enjoy it. It's a beautiful card, and I do expect to see it a lot in Opus 7 meta. Okay, Galdez, Final Fantasy Crystal Chronicles, 3-drop 8K is definitely above the curve, but having an on-break effect is pretty interesting though. Forcing opponent to discard a card is kind of nice. Choosing a monster in your break zone added to your hands is okay. But this effect, I actually looked at this one the most though, because I actually played this card in pre-release, and being able to have Galdez trade up into up to a 13,000 power forward is a pretty big deal. All right, Sid. Whew. Yeah, well, okay, so Sid is a board wipe that's now available to every element. Something to think about though is, well, Viking didn't have too much of a hard time playing Nidhogg. I still think for value they'll probably still play Nidhogg, but if there's a lot of Swarm decks around, there's a chance that Sid sees a little bit more play. If some decks are able to get a lot of value out of their cards, a lot of card draw as well, and save cards in their hand, Sid wouldn't be too bad. Keep in mind, if you have 6 points of damage, do not play this card for the love of God, because it will deal you 1 point of damage and you'll lose a turn. How often do I see this Giga Graviton actually being used? I think that's a bit of a reach. Something that's interesting though is Kimari. Yeah, it was on the back of everyone's mind for the longest time, being able to steal opposing special abilities. Keep in mind that this can only be used during your turn, so if you were to steal the ability of Sid with Kimari, you really should do it during your turn, otherwise you won't be allowed to use it, because Kimari's Roster Race Special allows you to play the ability for free without paying the cost during that turn, but you won't be able to play it during your opponent's turn. So don't steal the Giga Graviton during your opponent's turn. Steal it during yours with Kimari if you wanted to do that. And if Kimari is still on the field the next turn, during your next turn, at the end of your next turn, you win. So that's pretty cool. It sounds great. If I see it, I will give the guy a handshake, a high five, maybe a hug or two, because that'd be pretty impressive. Being able to play a 9 CP forward and to actually have enough CP to add another copy of Sid in order to get that special off. So if somebody steals it with Kimari, I'll laugh. If somebody is actually able to win a game with Sid, I will actually be impressed. Alright, so finally, we're getting to the starter cards. 2-draw 5K, Wire of Light. Kind of reminds you of the other Wire of Light. And there we go. 2-drop 5K. Fire. Dissidia, Final Fantasy 1. Yeah, looks similar, right? Looks a little bit different this time. I like the effect. It's not gonna enter the field trigger effects are not gonna work with gold bands, unfortunately. But if you do swarm your opponent, then and you actually have 4 or more forwards, including himself, you will have a 7,000 power haste forward for 2 on the turn he enters the field. So that's really interesting, and giving all the forwards you control plus 2,000 power. It could be a bit of a finisher, a bit of a swarm, but it'd be quite interesting, I think. Okay. Next up, Furion. So I actually watched the stream of the Army of Returners when they were playing some Opus VII cards during the previous weekend, and Furion in combination with Phoenix, 4CB Phoenix, was quite interesting. As long as Adam was able to have 3 forwards on the field when including Furion when they entered the field. Through Phoenix, he was able to deal 8,000 damage to an opposing forward, which was really interesting. And it's an EX burst too. Alright, Ultimecia. So there's a bonus effect if you have received 6 points of damage. So that's you really living on the edge if you're trying to pull that off, okay? But you'll be able to get 2 of the following reactions instead of 1. Normally you get just 1. A 6-drop 7k. That's definitely on the curve. That's something that you'd normally it'd be a 3 CP 7,000 power forward. The abilities are quite nice. Being able to dole 2 forwards could be 2 opposing. Choose up to 2 character opponent control. Dole them. Being able to dole 2 opposing characters, most likely forwards, would be interesting. Kind of like a Shiva, and having a body afterwards. But freeze all forwards opponent controls. Yeah. And freeze all backup opponent controls. Keep in mind she is a witch from Final Fantasy VIII, so there's definitely some bonuses you get from that, being able to search her out with. Well, normally you don't want to do it, but Vanilla is definitely able to search her out. But I think the main thing that people would think about is this little idea, being able to choose a job witch, such as Ultimecia, from Break Zone and put it into play. That would be pretty interesting though. Being able to discard Ultimecia early on, have a Dia out, and then have your choice between this and D. From breaking this Dia, have the choice between bringing back Ultimecia or Idia, whatever is preferable for your board, could be quite interesting. Okay. Next up, we've got the Emperor. Big restriction here that, 2-drop backup EX burst sounds great until you see that it doesn't have any enter the field effect until you receive 4 points of damage or more. But being able to dual freeze is quite nice, especially on the EX burst. So it seems to be more geared towards mid-range ice or tempo, especially if you're playing something where you expect to take 4 damage or so. Be able to having to discard 2 cards, have 1 ICP and dole it in order to dole a forward. That's a little rough. I mean, discarding 2 cards. Well, at least you could discard like light and dark cards if you wanted to. So that's at least that's interesting. But it's still going to take you another ice, so you're going to be pretty heavily invested into an ice deck if you were to do that. And it's actually choose 1 dull forward and break it. There you go. So that's interesting. Being able to turn your cards into, I guess you could say, almost a 6 CP, because 1 for doling the Emperor, 1 for doling hopefully doling ice backup in order to get the ICP, and then discarding 2 more cards. I guess you could say it's a way to do Ice Odin, if you want to compare it, because let's see, Odin. But more restrictive because, it's a dull effect. But it's a reusable effect, so that's kind of interesting. It feels like this card takes a lot of work to put into work to use effectively, so I don't expect to see it too much, but I could be wrong. Alright, Cecil works really well with a bunch of wind activating effects from, well, let's see, I already mentioned them before, but Bart's perhaps, or let's see, Kanisena. Or if you play the whole Kanisena package as well. So it would go hand in hand with a lot of those effects. So if you try to make a deck with a lot of activating effects, that'd be interesting. Cecil specifically, 2 characters, so it's not as picky as some of the other effects that activate either backups or forwards. And receiving 5 points of damage is not unlikely, and that effect is quite nice, being having the ability to not be chosen by opponents' abilities is a big deal, and 5-drop 10k is a pretty big deal as well. So I do like this card quite a bit. Final Fantasy IV category Paladin, so it's really nice. Okay. Ishtola, so that's another Silent 7th Dawn. This one a backup, so that's pretty nice. I believe there's some Scions coming out. Another starter set for Scions coming out in the next expansion. So let's not think about it too much. Unfortunately for this Ishtola, I think most Scions decks in Opus 6 and probably into Opus 7 will most likely be Earth Lightning. So she will probably be used in other decks, most likely Wind, obviously. And well, I don't know how relevant, how I feel too much about the first effect. Being able to deal 2,000 damage to a forward, that's okay. That's not bad, especially on the 2 CP forward. And the second effect, it should be, well, 7 characters or more is quite a bit. But if you go with the plan of with the primary plan of putting 5 backups out to get full efficiency, then it should be too hard to get 5 backups out as well as 2 other characters on the field in order to use that effect. Keep in mind that as she does count herself for the 7, and once you actually use her ability, even if you go to 6 characters from breaking herself, you would have already been allowed to use it at the time. Okay, whew, almost there. Garland, he's a knight, so that's relevant with, you know, the usual suspects. Ovelia for plus 1,000 power boost, and Duke Goltana to be able to search him out. And let's see, when he blocks, he gets a little power boost, and when he's put for the field to the break zone, you can choose another 4 to get plus 4,000 power. I kind of feel like meh about this card. It's kind of cool. Better on defense, obviously, and if you have more than one blocker for some odd reason, trying to make a comeback that way, that's interesting. Last but not least, we've got Golbez. So if you count it out, Golbez is his cost is reduced by 1 for every 5 cards in your break zone. So if you have 40 cards in your break zone, he is free. But that's a whole lot of cards in the break zone, and I mean, even if you're paying for like a 4 cost 9k, I think it's not that bad. So if you're at 20 cards, if you're mid game, it's not bad, and that effect is pretty big. I mean, being able to return a forward of cost 5 or less from the break zone to your hand is a big deal. I like this card. I expect to see it. Maybe not in full force, but even like just a one of to play mid game alongside with like Zemus, or you could play both of them combined, like Golbez and Zemus, or just play Zemus, play Golbez instead. If you don't have enough room to put multiple Zemus in your deck, I mean, this effect will come in right away, while Zemus would need to be able to use his ability, otherwise he won't be able to get the full effect out of it. So, do I like this Golbez? I do. Do I expect to see it in play? Yes, I do expect to see it out there in decks that have lightning in it. So hopefully you like what we did, going through all the reviews. Just as a reminder, from this point on, if I do videos, I will probably post them up on Twitch first on this channel, Anchorman70, and later on clean them up a little bit and have them archived on YouTube on the Breakzone channel. So if you like what we do and everything, feel free to subscribe and put thumbs up, whatever, put comments. Also, when the Breakzone YouTube channel gets 800 subscribers, we'll be doing a giveaway. Thanks to our sponsors, MagicNetGames.com, who should be putting up their Opus VII cards really soon, if not already have by now. And if you reach 800 subscribers on the YouTube channel, one person will be chosen at random, and they will get to pick one of these following items to be sent to them: Dominaria, Box Opal, Iconic Masters, Horizon Canopy, Cactuar Sleeves, a 60 sleeve pack, Lightning Plushie, or a Shiva deck box from the Toronto Crystal Cup with the signature of Taro Kageyama, the producer of the game. So thank you very much for tuning in. If you have any questions or comments, feel free to add them down below. And if you have any suggestions on other items we should put for our giveaways, feel free to let us know, and we'll see what we can do. And we'll catch you next time.